Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well out there. Here on the other side of the stick, we're all sick and dying. I got a fever and a sore throat, and Machine is also under the weather. So when PU asks how long this will be, until one of us falls off a chair. But and I figure after the 14 hours yesterday, you may all have been sick and tired of listening to me speak anyway. Those things are really for the rainy day of I have nothing better to do and need something to sleep to. Anyway, what I really wanted to do, and that's why Machine's here to help me keep track on what I'm saying. I figured together we'll have one functioning mind.
Right.
I didn't. I During the Stalin's war and FDR's war, those episodes. Lots of questions in the chats, lots of questions in the on the episodes, and I really wanted to give you guys a chance to ask some of those questions so we can actually talk about them and elaborate over them. And Machine has a bunch of questions as well, because it's sort of a big deal historically. I think it is something that's been known. FDR's involvement has been known. um, During the Verona transcripts, we know that there were spies and sympathizers in FDR's administration, big time. So, and we also know more and more over the past decade or decade and a half, of Stalin's active, what shall we say, machinations behind the scenes, whether it comes to the Hitler or the Japanese or the Americans or the British, to get things the way he wanted. And I think that this is something that needs to be more that needs to be in the mainstream history books, because if we don't get the origins of the Second World War correct, well, then we're not getting the history of the Second World War correct. So there. What say you, comrade?
I just looked down and seen that. I've seen Comrade Roosevelt. I don't know about that. I know about appeasement Roosevelt, but not Comrade Roosevelt. He was.
I'll go that far.
Yeah, he was a pragmatist that thought he could control Stalin, and that was a stupid thing. But
he appeased Stalin to the point where everyone in his own administration and military were questioning why, in God's name, he was fawning over him to the degree he did.
Yep.
And to me, this went far beyond. One thing is appeasement, also far beyond the story well we told. He wanted to defeat Hitler first. Harm. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to give Stalin so much for so long to enable him to fight the war he did all the way into the Cold War. This is beyond. This is above and beyond what he should have done, especially when he takes arms away from his own military. And MacArthur were left stranded in the Philippines. 40,000. 40,000? 40,000 American and Filipino troops, and 28 generals that were left back there, and they got nothing. Even okay, so there's right. So FDR was not a. We say he wasn't a spy, but at the very time where the Japanese were strangling the Philippines, we had 27 submarines in those waters that FDR pulled out to Australia. Instead of sitting around helping and trying to affect the outcome, he did things that are so detrimental to the American military that it really makes you wonder, what in God's name was he thinking?
Right. Well, and remember one of the things about that is he thought, okay, I can shake hands with the devil here, and I can make Stalin come to us, and he's going to, he's going to love us. The man was absolutely delusional. There's no, FDR was delusional. There's no doubt about that. He honestly thought at one time that he was going to be best buddies and rub elbows with the communists. The communists, if they had the chance, they would have went after us before they even went after the Germans.
Oh God, I
I
mean that's why what Stalin wanted more than everything was the Americans and the Japanese to get into it, and the British, Germans, and French to get into it. That way, everyone is weakened on both sides, and Stalin can come in and mop up, which is effectively what happened.
Poland.
Has Poland, um, and it is so interesting when you look at FDR's policies just leading up to it, and his great New Deal. There's very I have a very hard time seeing what FDR did that was good. He made the recession, the depression, last much longer than it should have done, and he kept making decisions that almost reinvigorated the depression. Um, it was some of the decisions he made were so unpopular by even his own party that you actually had Republicans and Democrats back then siding together against his ideas. I
Right.
don't think that's happened
Well,
anytime lately.
no, and Roosevelt honestly thought it was a calculated risk. That's where his mind was. But even after his advisors and, like you said, the generals and other people on both sides of the aisle are going, "You're being an idiot." He's like, nah, this is gonna work, trust me. And yeah, then we had the Cold War in modern times. And it looks like we have a question down there too.
Um, I think we're having a chat about what they chatted about yesterday. But one thing, well, all right, let's start with Stalin because it's an interesting thing of where he came from. Um, and Stalin was absolutely a brutal, self-centered man. And a lot of people they have then asked, well, Stalin, was he really a communist, or was he just jumping on the Trotsky-Lenin bandwagon to get to power? No, he was very much a communist. And the interesting thing is he was a
On steroids.
very bright. He was a bright student. He was a bright scholar, and he went to the seminary where he washed out because he confessed that he didn't believe in God, and he read Marx, and he was a communist already back then. And apparently, in order to be a priest, you have to believe in God. Surprisingly, I don't know. Maybe that changed since, but it started at a very young age for him to believe in these policies. So it didn't come out of nowhere, but I don't think he came out of a place of he had a crappy childhood that like so many others. A lot of the great thinkers and dictators and so on, they came out of like you see it today. You see wealthy children grow up to be these great Marxist, communist thinkers, and what is it, even in Cuba, they came from money. They're the children of rich people. Stalin wasn't. He came from poor and built himself up. He was a bank robber. He was a diehard criminal, kidnapper, extortionist. Did all sorts. He was a brutal man, and in a place like Russia at that time, well, it sort of makes sense that the most brutal person is the one that rises to power. And in communist countries, you can do that under that system.
Something.
And that is exactly what he did.
Yes, and some things haven't changed even in the modern times. That's exactly what it is. The brutal person wins.
But I did find an interesting comparison that for you that are now going to go out in the world and explain that the World War II and that went the way it did because of FDR and Stalin. When you have, and I don't want to talk contemporary politics because I'm really not in the, I'm way too sick for that today. But here's a piece of argument that you can all use that will the modern left, the modern Democrats we have today are running around calling everybody Nazis and comparing Trump to Hitler and all that. You heard all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, the very interesting thing about their great white hero, FDR, his policies in the 30s were practically identical to those of Hitler's. He enacted the Great Works projects, the nanny state, the very similar policies. And say, yeah, but Hitler was racist against the Jews. Well, that's fine. Because FDR, he was racist against blacks. Big time. Remember the 1936 Olympics? The entire Olympic winning team, they were invited to the White House except one. Who?
Jesse Owens.
He was a segregationist, FDR was. And not only that, and then he said, well, Hitler, he had Nazi doctors that experimented on Jews. Yeah, FDR, he had doctors experimenting on the blacks, and that didn't stop until, 30 years ago? The syphilis experiments.
It's been a little about 2 decades longer than that. It's been about 50, but yeah, you're right.
It was up there. So
Yeah.
when you come and say that, one thing they forget today is when they scream for socialism is that Hitler was a socialist, just like FDR was a socialist, and for a while they traveled a very similar path. So it's actually quite interesting that FDR would eventually embrace Stalin over Hitler, since they seem to have far more in common. But I do think that FDR was a closet communist. I do think he was, because there's no way he could have ignored what he did and done what he did if he wasn't.
There's evidence that points towards that. You know it, and I know it. We've seen some of the archival stuff, especially when it came to going back to what I said a minute ago, like the trust, him thinking he could appease or become friends with Stalin. Everybody else in the entire world knew that was not going to happen.
Yes.
That nobody can be friends with a man who wants all of you gone. And okay, well, let's stop there. We'll move on, and then we'll come back.
But it's interesting because to me this started out as, I started reading up on this. I've been wanting to do these episodes a year and a half. And one thing is doing an interesting fortress, or you give me a location. It doesn't take that long to research a place, and that's kind of fun. Sometimes it takes a little long to get pictures or drawings or stuff from it. But when you start looking into something bigger, like the bigger picture of politics, and you then get into something like Stalin and Hitler, of course I read Viktor Surolov's book, and I looked at what Glantz is writing, and there's just always seemed to be something wrong with that narrative. And the more I dug into it, and the more books I read, the more documents I read. And by the way, in case you want it, and I'll also put it on Patreon, the pilot that flew all this stuff to the Russians, he wrote a book about it. He also testified in the 1952 hearings about what he had done during the war. I actually have that book on PDF. I'll send it to you. It's very interesting. I was going to start picking out. I just got it yesterday. I was going to start picking out, because he opened some of these cases. He was wondering what he was sending to the Russians. That was so top secret, and a lot of these labels were signed off H. White from the White House. And what he found in there was nuclear reference stuff and heavy water, uranium things, plans, things of atomic nature that he didn't know anything about. Then after the bomb went off and the nuclear race, he started putting two and two together, and he wrote a book about it. And he testified at the McCarthy hearings about it.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's what I was saying. And it was just interesting that these things have started coming out. Also, like what do you have in those? Harry Hopkins, that was incredibly close to FDR. He has always been alleged as a unconscious or deliberate Soviet agent, and he was definitely mentioned in the Verona intercepts. Harry Dexter White, he is identified as a Soviet agent. He passed them tons of secrets, and that's been confirmed even in the KGB archives. Alger Hiss, Lachlan Curie, Silver Master. There's a lot of even OSS officials like Duncan Lee, or a lot of people in the Justice Department, in the State Department, an ungodly amount of people. They were all there, and FDR kept replacing anybody who was questioning his Stalinist policy with somebody that was pro.
It wasn't even the White House chief of staff that was even involved in that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
And when they went to Yalta, like I said, this is where not having a fever would probably make my brain work better. Bloodland. Yes, I have read Bloodlands. No, actually, I heard it because I have it on a podcast. So yeah, that's a hell of a thing. And all right, we'll just change the subjects and ask some questions, I guess. Uh, yeah, we had advisors with the French there for the longest time, and incidentally, a lot of SS men fought for the French in Vietnam and died in Dien Bien Phu, but that's a different story. Um, See,
Yeah.
that's the interesting question. Why was FDR so willing to do this? I'm saying I'm taking the full step out and say that he was a pro-communist president. He had leanings, socialist leanings throughout his administration. He had pro-communist. Even Harry Dexter White even said it in interviews. Everything he did for the good of Russia, which is not really helping us a whole hell of a lot. I think that's what and you can say it doesn't matter if these people were paid spies by the KGB or not. If everything they did to support Russia and to support Stalin, it doesn't matter why they did it. They still did it.
It's the same, right, and it's the same thing. Well, and I see T-Bird pops down there with it about the Lend-Lease repayments. Stalin had no design to pay those back, and Roosevelt, had he lived, would not have even tried. But that was the thing I was going to one of the things I was going to bring up too about Lend-Lease. Right as he said that, it wasn't just materials. Everybody thinks that Lend-Lease means, okay, well, we went over there and we handed them a few M1s and and some random equipment and stuff like that and some medical supplies, and that was it. No, it was technology. We sent over people from Ford Motor Company to help set up factories, which was hilarious because who do you think was making the German trucks too?
I know, right? I mean, the big tank factory in Stalingrad was a tractor factory built way before the war by the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
The whole concept of the big farms was taken from what was the Montana Wheat King, what the biggest farm in America. Again, American advisors. And American advisors had advised and built there, and they did the same thing in Germany. And Germans, they did research and military testing and even combat gases in Russia.
Sydney, they didn't need to steal our patents. We gave them to them willingly.
Yeah. And it was very interesting because after the war, all the American factories that we had bombed would produce German war goods in Germany. Those factories sued the government for having had their factories destroyed, and they were awarded compensation. So, I mean, business always wins, and that was the problem the communists had from the 1920s. Is they started with, yay, communism, yay, proletariat. Let's get rid of all the experts, shoot all the officers, get rid of everyone who knows something, lock them up. And then almost immediately, the whole country crashed. There's no money. There's no know-how. Everyone is starving. You lock up all the farmers. You take away all the. It was a mess. So Stalin and Lenin, they had to relent. And all right, we have to pull back a little bit. Let some of the people who know how to do things do what they know how to do. Otherwise, we're all going to starve to death. And they did that there for a while. And then it sort of became, for some years, learn from the people who know what they're doing. And when you have learned, then we'll take those people and send them off to the gulags, which they then did. But they had no problem. These arch super communists had no problem of trading gold and grain to American businessmen to come and teach them how to do things. It was all in the good name of communism. We will teach the Russians, and they'll pay for it, and they'll go away, and then we are these evil capitalists again. I mean, I think that there's one thing you can say: the overriding thesis of communism is that it has no shame, it has no value, no moral compass. It is basically a government, ends justify the means, and everything is for the revolution. Including corruption or murder, whatever you want. There's nothing good in communism. Ask the people in New York after the next election; they'll say,
"Yeah." Oh, the more I learn about him, the juicier it gets. It's bad. It's really bad.
And it is. It's. I mean, that was the interesting thing about during the Second World War and leading up to the Great Purges. A lot of people, of course, were just shot out of hand, which is what it is. But a lot more, they were sent off to the gulags or to the gulag factories. where you take somebody like Mikoyan, I think Mikoyan and Yakovlev, and some of the big, great designers, they started developing planes, and then eventually they fell afoul and they got locked up. But they got locked up with the whole design team, and now they were designing planes or tanks in a gulag factory. And eventually they were released and reinstated. But quite a few people were actually reinstated after the Great Purges. They were not outright shot. Kind of hard to reinstate somebody after you put a bullet in their head. Not that they wouldn't try. And that was the biggest problem they had with production and manufacturing of projects was they kept shooting the designers. One of them were locking them up, and at one point they had to stop building the TBE-7 because everyone who built all the key components that they locked up or shot them. And like, well, gee, that's a problem. Again, communism can't control itself; it goes over the rail, and that's what it is.
Wasn't that the same situation with the first version of the KV-1? Wasn't that tank the same? And that's why they went to the variant of the KV-2 and stuff like that, because they couldn't figure out the plans to the original. I got it somewhere. I'll have to look, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened there too.
Do you know why Viktor Suvorov he actually defected?
Yeah.
He was you heard the story.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the story of the gold for grain.
Yeah.
Or for those of you who don't, he was a many-year KGB veteran and military. I've been going back and forth with his people. I really want an interview, and he's kind of sort of hiding. I don't know what he's hiding, what he's doing. He's also probably gotten old, but I really would love to hear what he says, because so much of his research has now been validated. But he defected because he finally he oversaw a sale of a trade for Russian gold for American grain, and that's exactly the same thing they did during the Holodomor in the starvation of Ukraine, where they took the grain from the Ukrainians and traded it to the Americans for know-how, or they had slave laborers in the gulags. Yes, he did. Or they have slave laborers in the gulags and the gold mines digging out gold that then they would sell to the Americans for know-how. And it's justify the means. And that's what he saw, that nothing changes in a communist dictatorship. Nothing can change. And I still think I don't want to go there. It's just that's one of the things Russia is still suffering from today, because with communism comes corruption. You can't have one without the other. Which is interesting. Quite a few of the FDRs people were also accused and beaten for corruption. Rosenkovsky, wasn't he eventually who was the field marshal that was the old
yeah, I'm trying to think of it.
The one that was eventually shot because he had a different idea in the military as well. Sidebar: have I done an interview with Joseph Farrell? And if well, Jenna, yes, I did one. Joseph and I chatted for 3 hours Wednesday, and now that I have worked out the kinks, it's actually up on my Patreon. If you were a member, then you would see it anytime. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait a little bit. Shameless self-promotion. Yeah, Jill, but corruption is easy when you're far from the capital, but corruption seems to be far easier when you're in the capital, of whether you're in DC or you're in Moscow. I think you can make more money in the capital being corrupt than if you're far away. Shoot a question. We have a question. Shoot. Oh.
Yeah, what question I may have missed it because I'm trying to multitask here. That's not a question. That's an answer. Scrolling up still.
Me too. Damn it, William, we missed you. We need to stop talking. We'll have a chat, but we say nothing until people say something. Oops.
Yeah, William, I don't see a question. I see some of your responses, but I don't see a question. So can you please ask it again?
I'm trying launching the backup, so already Black Ops money. Yeah, William, shoot it again because I guess we missed that far down as well. And this is why we're here. Right. Yeah, one does lead to what did you have a question? You had some thoughts when we were all conscious yesterday.
Yeah, those went by the wayside. I kind of wrote a few of them down, but now we've kind of went through some of it, so I'm trying to see which one is going to be relevant to what I was thinking. Yeah, we're doing good today.
Like I have no idea. How do you get a summer flu? I'm in California. It's 800 degrees out here. At the top, he says. Well, at the top.
Well, at the very top, yeah. I'm not going to go that far back. Just ask it again, please.
William, copy paste and toss it up again. You're dealing with sick people here.
Well,
oh, here we go.
Yeah, there was a couple things like even going back as far as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and
yes,
Toronto stuff like that. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, my question too. Did the German High Command know that Russia was going to invade? Yes, they did. Okay, what is interesting about that is I have been looking for those documents of the pre-war, pre-Barbarossa documents, aerial photographs, and I'm waiting for them to show up in the mail. I actually saw them. They should arrive on Tuesday by one of the pilots who flew one of those aerial reconnaissance missions. They knew the Russians were building up. They also knew the Russians were planning this for a while. And if you ask me, that is why Hitler all of a sudden was in such a hurry. Because, yes, it was always on the cards that those two entities were going to have a fight. I don't think anybody in the world didn't see that coming. But after the piss-up in Berlin in November 1940, where Molotov was demanding things, oil fields in Romania and all sorts of things from Hitler, and he did it in a tone that really pissed off Hitler. That's when he said, okay, we're going to have to fight these people, so start planning for it. But it wasn't a mobilization, let's double our tank production kind of thing. It was, from what I read into what Hitler did. I'm taking the long answer on this one, William, so bear with me.
Go for it.
This was this was going to happen. I think if you asked Hitler in December or January 1941, and said, when is this going to happen? When are you going to go to bad war with Russia? He would probably have said a year or two. But as the Russians were building up and massing more and more, he had to speed up his process. And when you keep seeing now, the German generals are not stupid people. Even the Russians said they're not stupid people, and they were not. They were very smart. They were a little poor on the logistics side because they've been fairly lucky in all the campaigns so far. But when they saw, and it must have happened from the Russian side from May. I mean, the Russians were always building up men and material. And they always said, Stalin said, we're going to wait till they're strong enough. And my case was in the documentary, when are they strong enough? They have 23,000 tanks. The Germans have 3,500. I would say you are strong enough at this point. They have 2,000 heavy and medium tanks. KVs, KVs,
yeah.
IS-1s and 2s and T-34s. They had more heavy tanks than the Germans did. They had more airplanes than the Germans did. Had they struck first, that would have been a formidable opponent. So you can't sit and say, well, the Russians are not strong enough. They were strong enough, but the Russians were now moving to jump off quicker. And when that became evident, that's when Hitler had to speed things up. And I think that's one of the problems you have with Barbarossa is that, the Germans weren't ready, but they didn't have a choice. Because if they waited 2 more weeks, then the Russians would have jumped off against them and the shoe would be on the other foot, so to speak. And I think that explains a lot, because we all historians have forever, we've all asked these questions. I have asked those questions. You've asked those questions, Machine. Why on earth did he attack Russia? we also, why would he do this? He's not done in the West. Hitler was not an idiot. He knew that the two-front war was a bad idea. It all falls into place when I tell you he didn't have a choice. He had to go because the Russians were coming.
Yeah, they were amassing men and materials. It was
and that pretty much that explains. Then all the pieces fall into place. So, oh, but the German logistics weren't. But they were as ready as they could be because there was no choice. It had to be now. Yeah, but they weren't ready for. Yeah, but exactly. They weren't ready. You go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. You just kind of hope to build it. And production wasn't ramped up until March in Germany.
Right. Well, and that also goes back, at least on Stalin's side, all the way back to Lend-Lease again, where most of the trucks and even the Russian soldiers said, if it wasn't for the American equipment at the time, we would have not been able to do anything that we did, and that included the majority of the trucks, which was the Studebakers.
Yes. And the rubber and the tires and the shoes. Stalin couldn't have put shoes on his soldiers' feet if it wasn't because we sent them boots. Because all the boots and uniforms were made in the Baltic area, and the Germans had taken that. And yes, the Russians have absolutely downplayed the American help. And they like you saw in the video I did, they painted over the American flag, they painted over the American writing. A lot of Russians, they thought that the Shermans and the tanks they're driving around were theirs. So it wasn't until they met the Americans on the Elbe that, oh my God, you have tanks like these too? Yeah, they're ours. Oh. So because and that's another thing is when you said that Stalin wasn't grateful, not only would he not be great, was he not grateful? He was, hot girlfriend model type ungrateful bitch.
What's bad? That was the kind of way I was going to go with it. It reminds you of the Expensive Valley Girl. That's what.
Right? I mean, he was a grateful bitch to the point where, hey, you just be happy that you're seen around this table with me at all.
Well, remember, he downplayed the role of Lend-Lease to begin with. He said, oh, it wasn't that important. They really didn't do much for us. When in fact, the majority of their materials, over 60% of all their materials that went into their war machine came from us.
Yeah. And they were whining about all these T-34. Oh, look at all these T-34s. They could have built look at them, the Russians. Yeah, but they couldn't have built them if we didn't send them the metal for it, or the aluminum for it, or the rubber for it, I mean, the Russians would not have made it to Berlin.
They may have used their engines, but who sent them the high octane diesel? Who sent them the JP8?
Right.
You had all the oil. They had all the oil fields, and they couldn't figure it out. So they're like, "Hey, what do you guys got? Because you guys got some killer equipment over there." But that's splitting hairs though, because most of our Shermans were gas engines, which was.
Yeah, and the Russians didn't want that. They had us build them diesel Shermans. Which I'm saying, if we're building diesel Shermans for the Russians anyway, why on earth are we not writing those? Because that seemed like a better idea. I just missed a question about Moisen somewhere here. Didn't Remington have a contract with Moisen Nagant to the Russians? I do not know, T-Bird.
It wasn't Remington. I believe it was Winchester.
Winchester?
I believe Winchester was helping making. I'll have to look. I've got a book on that.
We made weapons for them.
We made a lot of weapons for them. I mean, even their ammunition. They're talking about ammunition manufacture. We supplied them the powder, the shell. We even made the casings here in the States. There was multiple factories that were actually producing the 7.62 casings.
Yeah.
So it's.
We were also making. I'm looking for a Julie question that we apparently missed because I got to get my mouse in here so I can scroll on the chat. Damn it. We also made what they need for their flamethrowers. We had to build a whole factory for $50 million in order to build up the chemicals that they actually could have done themselves. Pierre, that's a good question. Love that question. Give me a second. I'm just trying to find Julie's question that I missed. Machine, we got to find a better way of doing this.
Oh, I'm trying to watch a chat, but it's I'm fighting off a migraine, so I'm watching the chat and yeah, and all the lights I got going on in here. It's killing me, but
I think I may have one. Is this the one? Right. Well, yes, it was that was the Führer order. That was number 41, or was that the commissar order? I'm sorry, I have a fever. But yes, that was after Molotov had been in Berlin, and they had a kind of a piss up meeting because there's so much to this. Remember Pierre's question that I already forgot, but it was a good question.
Yeah, what do you think would happen? Yeah,
I hear. What was interesting is when he said Lend-Lease. Yeah, but FDR started sending weapons and materials to the Russians before Barbarossa, while Stalin was allied with Hitler. And I think that is something you really into the Cash-Carry Act. And he deceived Congress in order to do this a number of times. He was sending material to the Russians while they were allied with Hitler. That should ring a bell. And that should also ring a bell that somewhere Stalin and Hitler, or Stalin and FDR, had an understanding of what was coming. That Stalin must, unless you want to go full trader on FDR, which I also have no problem with. God, I wish I had. Stalin must have telegraphed to FDR that he was going to attack Hitler. Because why else would FDR be building up Stalin's military from before he and Hitler got into it? If you think about it, there must be something to that. And when he got to Berlin, but the Germans were still negotiating with the Russians. And always remember that famous talk that the last supply train from Russia to Germany was rolling westward as the German troops were marching into Russian occupied territory. They were in business the whole time, and they're also negotiating. But it was clear from 1940 November, that meeting, to Hitler and probably to Ribbentrop and to Molotov as well, that they were not going to find an agreement, because now Stalin was asking for more than Hitler could give, namely access and control over all of the oil fields. And Hitler could never give up the oil fields, bad enough as it was. So that was where the crack was going to be. And I think from 1940, that was obvious. Or from the winter 1940, that was obvious to all. It was obvious to Hitler, and that's when he started put out the order to start preparing for war with Russia. Not actively, we're attacking this date, but make the plans. What did Pierre say? Because, Jesus.
He asked, "What do you think would have happened if FDR would have died in 44 instead of 40?" My argument that is absolutely nothing. I think we would have still been on the same trajectory because everything was already said and done and kind of in print. Because it was basically almost like what do you call it? Almost like fiscal year type stuff.
Yes and no. Well, now FDR and Truman were not particularly close. The only reason why FDR picked Truman, whom he didn't particularly like, was that he was a moderate. And FDR had an ungodly amount of enemies and people against him for his policies. He was not a very popular president at the time, mind you, no matter what they said after. And that's why he picked Truman. Truman, the first thing he did when he got in, was he terminated aid to Russia after the war in Europe had ended. But he was still surrounded by FDR's aides. FDR's people were surrounding him. So they got it picked back up again. So the question is, Truman took a harsher stand in the years against Russia, supported the creation of NATO and many other things. Then certainly FDR. FDR lived. I dread to think what would have happened to the German people.
Right.
And had FDR died earlier, he would have gotten rid of, what's that nut job? Did I just telegraph what I think of the man whose name I'm about to mention?
Yes. Slightly.
He had the first plan for post-war Germany. Damn it, what is his name?
I've been to the Winchester House.
He was come on, you guys, you know who his name was. He was Roosevelt's advisor. He was in.
I know, and I'm like,
not Rosenthal. Morgenthau.
Morgenthau,
Henry
yeah.
Morgenthau.
Oh, Andreas, good job, dude.
Andreas got it. There's a T-shirt there.
Yeah. We both said that. I looked down. I'm like, he's already said it.
If FDR had lived and they had followed Morgenthal's plan, which they probably would have, because Morgenthau went on behalf of FDR to Churchill when Churchill said, we have to put a stop to this to Stalin before he takes over all of Eastern Europe. Having read up on this, I have somewhat revised my feelings towards Churchill a little bit, and I'll be the first to say that I'm not a big Churchill fan. I'm still not a big Churchill fan because I think he made decisions that ruined the British Empire. But I will say that he was a heck of a lot more of a realist and less willing to just murder Germans outright than FDR apparently was. But Morgenthau went to him and said, if you don't, it was about the Polish and about the Katyn massacre that they all knew. And basically Morgenthau said, well, I'm going to cut all the aid to Britain if you don't shut up and go along with this. Churchill was utterly emasculated by the time of Yalta. You don't see him have a genuine smile at any point because at Yalta, it was clear that FDR and Stalin was running this show and Britain had no more cards to play. There was nothing Churchill could do at this point. And I keep asking, well, if FDR actually had any sense of situation or democracy or anti-communism, at no point in time did they set any boundaries for the Russians. Just like the crazy girlfriend we just talked about, who wants and wants and wants. Why did FDR not at any point in time say, oh, by the way, I'm sending you 10,000 tons of fuel and munitions every month. Would you mind letting out my damn airmen that you imprisoned? Oh, by the way, that's not a question. Nothing like that. To me, that's treason. Call me old-fashioned. But they never demanded, like, no, you can't have Poland after the war. They didn't. Stalin said, yeah, we'll have free elections in Eastern Europe after the war. Sure thing. They never made him sign it.
No, they never did
anything.
No, there was no thing. There was no, concessions about that. And not only that, think about this going back to the Roosevelt Stalin. Who was the one that was the most worried when Roosevelt died? Stalin. Stalin was freaking out because he knew that we were not going to play those games after Roosevelt was gone.
Yeah. And then, like I said, if Roosevelt had been gone a year or two earlier, I think Truman, having spent time in the military, he had the artillery unit in World War I where he accidentally shelled Rogers' house. That's a good story.
Terrible, but it's true.
It was the funniest thing when Rogers said they told that to the one of the American ambassadors. Oh yeah, you shelled my house. Like, oh my God, reparations? Say, no, it's been fixed. It's okay.
We shelled a lot
but
of
I think Truman wouldn't have put up with this had he been in the know. And you see that down the line after the war. I mean, you can't blame Truman for sort of giving in the first 6 months, year of the administration, because FDR never read him into anything. He didn't even know about the nuclear bomb. He had no idea. So he had to sort of start from a cold with all of FDR's advisors until he finally figured out what was going on, and he started putting a stop to some of it. Really? They do? I thought the Russians by now had sort of at least admitted it.
No, they still try to downplay their involvement. There's also, just the sweep through, through Germany. Same situation. It was, my brain's starting to short out. The amount of atrocities and stuff like that. It wasn't just the massacres, because they killed every last man, woman, and child that they came across, but they also did other horrible things like rape and robbery and whatever else.
Yes.
That seemed to be the natural order things. So no, they're not going to admit it.
And there was actually a couple of Polish that escaped the massacre and made it to England and testified, and FDR still wouldn't listen to it. And again, because they said, well, 1944, they knew this, they both knew, and again, none of them stood up to Stalin. If they had pulled the aid from Stalin 100% in 1944, Russia had enough to carry on the war for a couple of years, just not as fast. They could have bled out against the Germans. The Allies would have made it into Germany all the way through before the Russians occupied all of Eastern Europe. That would have been a beneficial, but never even thought of doing anything like that. And the only reason why they didn't is because the president 100% sympathized with Stalin and the communists. There's no other way to explain why he did what he did. And if someone else, if he had any help getting rid of him, there's a lot of people who really wanted to get rid of FDR. J. Edgar Hoover was one of them. And J. Edgar Hoover, he wrote a book himself, which is now in 3 volumes for $1 million.
Was he wearing his tutu when he did it?
But I just ordered it because I want to know, because there's some very interesting stuff about that as well. I don't think FDR was killed. I don't have any reason to think that yet, but I sure as heck would. A lot of people didn't cry when he went. And I'm sure if somebody could have gotten rid of him earlier, they would have loved to. So you never know. Maybe he was poisoned like Napoleon was or wasn't.
I'll play devil's advocate here for just a second. What if it was a 60-40 split? It was a 60% split that he was being sympathetic towards the Russians and their plight, or was he, and 40% he was being an appeaser?
But that's still 100% pro-Russian communist and 0% America. So it doesn't really matter.
I know. That's why I said it that way.
Right? It doesn't matter which way we color the pig. It's still a communist comrade pig. And that also it interesting because after the war, now all of this, after Stalin died, the Russian narrative changed because now Stalin was dead, and true to any good dictatorship, well, now I must look good by explaining how the guy who did before did everything wrong. It was all him. He did wrong. He was alcoholic. He appeased Hitler, bad guy. And then that's what they did. And that's why I love like Glantz, he writes really, really good books. But, and I'm not saying but in the sense of putting anything down on his books, because he writes amazingly well-researched books, yet all of his notes are formerly, a lot of them, or notations, quotations, citations are from Russian sources. And I really don't want to write the history of World War II based on Russian sources, knowing how they have completely rewritten history. I mean, the Russian sources, the communists and the socialists in the medias have rewritten, and I think that's an interesting thing. And I thought to myself, I should actually mention that in the documentary because, but we know what we know, or what we think we know about history, because of what we read in books, see documentaries, and hear hear in the media. And all of those 3 are heavily influenced by people of a socialist mindset. And I'm being nice saying it that way, which means that anything detrimental to the communist way have been sugar-coated, and anything that would make us look better have been downplayed. And that's what you have seen ever since the Second World War. And I'm seeing, when did all these communists infiltrate the education system, the media? Well, they did from before. They were always there. Who do you think got Trotsky out of New York, out of the hands of the Canadians, and into Russia to start the civil war in Russia that would eventually get Russia out of the war against the Germans, fleeing up German soldiers that were fighting the Americans? That was America. We're looking at, again, who was in New York? FDR was in New York. He was the governor of New York. And the mayor of New York before that, I believe. There's a heavy socialist fraction that have always been on that side. Look at the New York Times, who actively denied the Ukrainian genocide. who denied the Holocaust for the longest time.
Yeah,
What else did they do? I mean, the New York Times have pretty much denied all the major stories and sided with the wrong side of history.
yeah,
So
but
you see, and people believe this because they're
right.
them.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. And sadly, still
So
to this day,
consider your sources.
yeah, sadly, still to this day, people don't know what the Holodomor is. They don't know. They don't know. Much about the Holocaust. They're not taught it. But you get this. My favorite stupidity that I ever see, and a lot of people use it. At least the sympathizers are like, well, according to the Red Cross, only 440,000. Like,
Right. Yeah.
no,
Right.
that was never real, right? And that they never said that. I said that was brought up in the 60s, by one of the neo Nazis that escaped Germany, went on to another country, so to speak. We'll leave that one out for later. But no, it was always denial. They denied that the 7.5 million were killed, that starved to death in the Holodomor. They denied the 6.5 million in the Holocaust. They denied that that the chances are that the 6.5 million isn't even the correct number. It's actually much higher. They said that these things didn't happen, even though insurmountable evidence says that they did. But it's this is why we got to continue to dig and continue to talk, or else people forget.
and they do. And I just wanted. I mean, I always wish there were more Russians here, but I actually don't think. You're absolutely correct. And just finish off that thought before I move on to God and Russia, which I will in a second. Because if people really want something on a Sunday mornings to hear me talk about God and Russia, you're absolutely right. And a lot of times before I buy a book, I will look up the writer, the author, and I will look up what did he write? Where does he stand? Is he an honest writer? I will say I'm very impressed with Sean McKean, despite the fact that he doesn't have time to actually come on and talk to me. He seems like very honest and let the fault fall on both sides. And I think you really need to explore like what network is showing your documentary. I'm preparing a documentary right now. The evolution, the Hitler's Gold, and the Who's Trading with the Enemy for TV. And I up and down like, well, I pretty much draw the parallel for the Nazis to the EU, to the Schwab and all those people and sitting up in their mountains. And I keep wondering if I'm going to get the note. Yeah, you kind of need to delete those last 3 minutes because we can't really sell this to the EU if you draw parallels between the EU and the Nazis. I've been waiting for that. I'm waiting for that. I'm not saying I won't do it because it's not material to the story of the Second World War, but I think it's easy to draw the parallels to where things are going now. God and Russia. I gotta mention that. Like I said, I wish there was more Russians here, but I don't think YouTube is on in Russia. I think there's a lot of censorship going on. There are a lot of websites. Western has been censored, so unless they're on a VPN, I don't think they're here.
Even with VPN, it's kind of screwy. I got a couple of one of my friends is actually in Kursk, and they don't see any of this. They don't get any of that information at all. It's ridiculous, but it is. I mean, even I've gotten warnings from YouTube saying that I will not be played in these territories, and it's always the first one is Russia.
Yeah, I figured it would be. I mean, and it's sad because I would actually love to hear more Russians involved in these conversations. I would really love to do an interview with one of the Wagner guys just to hear their point of view.
Yeah,
and I think
they don't want to hear because they go to Gulag.
Well, unfortunately, yeah. And that's the thing that I say a lot of things that I'm very much an anti-communist. And I have nothing good to say about people like Stalin and Lenin and what some of the Russian soldiers did, but I have no bad will towards the Russian country or the Russian people. I would love to spend time in Russia and visit and see all the historic sites because no matter how you twist and turn it, Russia is in hugely immensely important. It's a real country with real culture and has some real people. It's a great country. Russia is a great country. Can't deny that. Has Russia had piss poor leadership forever? Yes.
Yep.
We'll also say that. That's not really the Russian people's fault, because the way I look at the Russian people as great undertrodden subservient people whose freedoms has been destroyed for the past 200, 300 years. And every time somebody tried to open it up and give Russians their country back, they were usually murdered, and it went, and as the term is, and then things got worse. And I feel bad for Russia, because it's a country I would love to spend more time in, and I would like to hear more of, or more from the Russians, because I don't want to sit here and knock them, making it sound like I'm knocking the country or the people. America has had piss poor politics forever, but we're also an amazing country. We just happen to believe in a little bit more freedom than the Russians do. I don't know if Hitler died in Argentina. I've always said, no, I don't think so. I think he died in Berlin. I've always said that. I've always held on to that, because just like you wrote, psychologically, I don't think he wanted to move on. And then the second explanation, the next thing I will get for people having that conversation with is, yes, but Bormann had him drugged and flown out along with Eva. I'm like, okay, which I could see as what makes me question this is that I know people in Argentina, in South America, historians, researchers that are so dedicated and so certain that he was there, that their certainty makes me doubt a little bit that maybe he was, because they are so dead. And you know, sometimes people they believe what they believe for God said so. I know people who would compile thousands of pages of research and said, this shows me he was here. I met people who knew him. I met people who met Bormann. I knew people who met Eva, who met I know Eva's granddaughter. I know Eva's daughter. I know where she is. And when you hear that, okay, I will open up the door to say that some of them, I'm certain that Bormann made it. I would find it weird that he brought Eva with him, because they couldn't stand each other.
No, Ava wouldn't have left Hitler's side. I'm on the fence of Bormann. I think it's plausible that he possibly disappeared. I don't believe the bull crap that that they found part of his shoulder and whatever else like that, and that's him, because the bones are a little too feminine for that. Bormann,
the DNA tested the skull in Russia.
Yeah, he was a
woman.
When it comes to Hitler, no, absolutely not. I believe he absolutely died in Berlin, like I said, because of his psychological profile. He would not have survived. Not only that, let's take that into account. Let's say, okay, leave the psychological profile off to the side. Let's say he actually got out. If he got out, he'd have been dead shortly after anyway, because he wouldn't have had morale to keep his drugs in him. The downward spiral of getting off those drugs would have killed him. Not only that, he was also actually really in poor health. He really was. He was very, very, very frail. He wouldn't have lived long anyway.
Yeah, no, he absolutely was. But which is interesting, because one of the places they found in Argentina that they said where he was full of old medicine boxes and medicine and pill glasses and things. And there was a Navy doctor from one of the ships that was caring for him. There's only a few Navy people that cared, but they left him. They pretty much supposedly locked him up, and he sat in his house there with a handful of people that took care of him. Bormann hardly ever got there. I am 98% certain Bormann he got out, because it fits in with a whole lot of things post-war. When I see pictures, and I have of Eva, of Eva's daughter wearing her necklace, and I see that lineage, I'm like, yeah.
But we've ran layover scans of those photos, and her bone structure does not match. They're close, but they do not match, especially her bridge line and her jaw features and everything. that is definitely not Ava Braun. But
it would make sense that that they were dead in Berlin and Stalin had their bodies hidden because well, that's what communists do. They hide things and they use them as an excuse to Stalin was accusing the Americans, the West, of hiding Hitler for a year after the war.
Well, yeah, along those lines. Remember in the 70s, I believe it was it the late 70s or the early 80s when one of the Russians that that defected, that went over, from east to west, even stated that yes, they have the bodies, that they are hidden somewhere in the Kremlin. They admitted that they had them, that they had not just parts of them, but the whole,
yeah. Yeah, that whole thing about, well, we got the body and then we have a bone and then we destroyed the rest, and like there's just something weird about this, that we disposed of the body like everybody else. Yeah, I could see why, like when they dug up Hess's grave, I believe, and scattered his ashes. The Germans did not long ago. But I could see the Russians having that be one thing locked away in the archive for a rainy day. Yeah, they found some teeth and they found some dental work, and they had his dentist come in and compare to the look at the bridge. But there's also, there's always a pro and con on this, because we don't know, so we're only guessing. But I do know they had doubles made. Bormann had doubles. Hitler had doubles, and it's not entirely implausible that they had the dental work done on the doubles as well.
Right.
So they could stand specifically for that reason.
But those pieces, and specifically part of the teeth, the French got a hold of in the 90s and tested that through DNA testing and said 100. It was with 100% certainty or 99% certainty that it was Adolf Hitler. Yes, they did. I've got, like I said, I lost a lot from losing my hard drives during that, 6 years ago in that tornado. But I had that, and yeah, they went through all the testing. They waited all this time because, of course, technology had to progress where they could actually do that, to where they could break it down as far as possible. And that was the first time that the Russians had actually released anything from what they had. And ironically enough, they sent to the French instead of us. But
see, there's and I don't want to be that guy that says, well, if an official source says something, then I probably don't believe it. But
that's
just like when but that's kind of the world we live in now, where we're skeptical until we really see proof, and then we see proof and we're still skeptical because, well, but what I also maintain is, yeah, I could see the Russians doing all sorts of weird things with hiding the body to use it for political purposes down the line, lying about it, stirring up some shit between the Allies. Say, well, they have him and you don't have him because you can't prove the body. I could see the Russians doing all sorts of things. Stalin would be all over any kind of machinations like that. But what I then also say is, it doesn't matter, because whether he lived or died has not changed history. He was not in a position, even if he lived, to affect changes in the world anymore.
And that's where the psychological profile comes in.
Yeah, and he knew that, but yeah, I could see within a small part of the okay, I'm gonna have to translate this for you guys. Hang on. I could see why. For a small group of dedicated Nazi followers after the war, it would be great to have the Führer to rally around. But rally around for what? He couldn't do anything. He couldn't make a phone call and say, oh, by the way, this is Hitler. Could you write a check for me? Something. There's nothing he could do anymore. And that doesn't matter if he lived or died, because he didn't do anything. He couldn't cause any more effects. Bormann could with his money. All right, this says, Tino and Brandon, there's also that body the Russians found in the spring of 1945 that succeeded because of oil they took to a hospital. There's a sequence of this. I'm taking it. Where's the other part of that? which are you talking? Are you talking about the body of the doppelganger, or
Yeah, I believe that's what they're
Russia
referring.
found a lot of bodies in 45. They also created a lot of them, but that's a different story. I love how international we are here. Because nobody started writing in French, because seriously. But I remember when they found the Bormann body in '91, that was covered in red clay. A Bormann, and then they only did the mitochondria DNA, and then they destroyed the body. So no more testing. No
Right.
testing against any of Bormann's children. He had 5 of them. One of them's a priest that was well known, lived in Berlin. Didn't test it against him. Tested it against some far uncle. And I'm like, really? And then you destroyed the body. You only did half of the DNA you could have done, because the DNA that if they tested the other type of DNA, that would have proved. See, the problem with Bormann living is that he had children after the war, and
but
that could only, the other DNA could have proved that, because it would come to the mother or something.
Right, and if there was one guy that would enact self-preservation and get the hell out of Dodge, it would have been Bormann. Bormann was only riding the coattails because he wanted that power, he wanted that fame.
And he wouldn't scrape away the wall.
He already started twitching and wanted to get out. You know,
that's what I'm saying. You know what? Boy, is he still alive? Is Bormann's son still alive? Somebody check on that, because if he's still alive, why haven't I met with that man yet? I mean, he's got to be pretty old by now. But that would actually be interesting. If there's any of those, he's got to be old by now, though.
Yeah, even if he is alive, he'd be well into his 80s by now.
No, still, I mean, if he's a man of God, they can live pretty long. I mean, he's probably not living as healthy as the rest of us, is kind of where I'm going with that. Thomas. Oh, yeah. It's funny how that man, that Crooks, he was just cremated right there and then. Yep. And Bin Laden, yep, you're absolutely right. Didn't see a body on that either. There's just stuff going on that I'm not happy with.
Martin Jr. passed away in 2013. Okay. I say it's been considerable amount of time since I even looked him up. So yeah, I kind of figured. Let's see where to go with that. But what like how many of the again, I'll kind of I'll throw a question out there just to see what happens. How many of the the top people that were in the bunker towards the end there, how many of those do you think actually survived versus actually committing suicide in the bunker and or being outright killed when they left?
I think we have a fairly good accounts of that, where some of them killed themselves, and a lot of the ones who tried to get away got away. A lot of the secretarial staff lived.
Well, the secretarial staff, yes. I'm not talking about like
the key players.
And yeah,
I mean, you would think that is something we could actually look up and find.
And well, another one of the ones I'm looking for too. I think we've talked about this before. I'm still trying to find more information on Kirk Siegfried Schrader.
Right? Yeah, I've seen that picture too. I don't know if that's the real him or not. Did they take a picture of Bin Laden? I mean, I know they did, but did it get leaked?
Yes, but was it actually officially released? No.
Well,
mostly because I think they should.
Yeah, both of his valet and his driver both survived, and they both ended up in Russia for a decade, where the Russians tried to get everything out of them, and for some reason they came out of Russia absolutely hating each other, and we never really figured out what happened between those two in Russian captivity. One can only imagine. I don't know if anybody actually ever asked what happened to Günsche and Linge and why they what happened there. That's always thought that was interesting.
Well, from what little I can get on Günsche, he was, I mean, like you said, he was taken to Russia. The fact that he survived that at all is possibly a miracle, because from what I can gather, he was pretty mercilessly tortured.
The both of them, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
especially against you because he was, Hitler's boy.
yeah. And I mean, if one of them talked, I would not hold it against them, because what else are you going to do if you want to live in any which way? I probably have to go to Russia and find them there. All right, I'll see if I can look for that photo. Now, again, we live in a world where every time we find a photo, we have to run it through an AI ID to see if it's a fake picture or if that's real. This whole AI thing is not going to be a good. It's not. I don't know what it's going to do, but I already don't like it. I mean, cell phones already screwed up an entire generation and a half. Now we've got cell phones with AI. How much worse is it possibly going to get than an entire population that walks around with their eyes in their phone?
Right. Well, one of the things I brought up about that is people seem to think that AI, because AI is supposed to be, artificial intelligence, that is supposed to be the end all be all. And I was like, no, it is a tool, but it is not an end all be all. It is not not a human being. It does not understand nuances. It does not understand the outside world coming together. Like, well, that's what I wrote even in the in that article.
And it needs to be looked at as,
but do not trust it as the last line of defense.
To me, Egypt. We shall see. Actually, the Desert War will be interesting. Maybe one day. Pacific first.
Us mostly. I mean, I'm half native, half German, but us don't go to the.
I think you need to look at cell phones as a tool. It cannot be. Most people are a slave to their damn cell phone, and it frustrates me to no end. As you all know, I'm very dedicated to working out, been my whole life. And when I stand in the gym and I look around this great gym and I see half of everybody looking at their phone or doing selfies. I mean, the selfies I can live with. Fine. If hot girls want to take pictures of themselves, fine, do it. Don't care. But for people to put the dumbbell down, pick the phone up, it drives me nuts, because when you work out or you do sports, there's connection with your body. You're doing something for you with you, and your mind is in it. If your mind leaves your workout in between every set to look at your cell phone, your mind's not in it anymore. Now you're somewhere else, then you work out, then you're somewhere else. That's not how you do things. William, we will all see you next week. You take care. Be safe, be well, chat. But yeah, the cell phone thing, it drives me nuts. And if you look at the psychology, ever since 2012, 13, when smartphones, Instagram really became a thing, young girls their anxiety have risen by 45% into the higher. Young people's anxiety levels are through the roof because of all the fake crap they see on their cell phone, and because they always have to be connected. And if you have kids, which I'm guessing there's more of you guys out there who have kids than are kids, but you need to be aware that if you need to detox your kid from their cell phone and actually join the normal life again, it's over a week. They have to do 2 weeks without a cell phone to actually reset. It's not just a couple of days. It's not just put the phone down by the dinner table. If you really need to get back to normal, out in nature for a month, no cell phone. Leon Dubrel was in Spain. He lived there for, I feel so bad that when I lived in Europe, a lot of these people were alive, and I could have gone and met with them. Especially, would love to have met with Himmler's daughter, and so many others. Leon Dubrel, he lived for quite old age. I think Scorsese, he died in the 80s or 90s. But a lot of these people have interesting stories, and it would be nice to have had them recorded. I'll say. But yeah, I mean, you looking at modern tools. If you want to destroy modern civilization, turn off the internet or news for 4 months. Well, maybe you'd actually save the civilization by doing that. because people would have to find alternate ways. I think that's probably where you want to go. Yes, dude. Hey, T-Bird. Hey, David. Yeah, that's what I was. I would love to have met Goering's kids, and I would love to have met Himmler's kids, which again there are none left. Which is why it's so funny that the FBI they're denying my FOIA request to preserve witnesses, and they're all dead. I wrote that back to them, like, yeah, I don't want to take that because they're all dead. And then they wrote, well, you have to respond through proper channels. Like, there was the proper channels I had responded to. So,
well, remember, we do a lot of FOIAs, and every time we do FOIAs, and most of the time, if we do get anything back, it's usually so redacted, it's basically just our name at the top and the address at the bottom.
And it's like, why are we redacting documents from World War I and World War II at this point? Like, what are we protecting? And sometimes you wonder, is it just because there's not enough people to actually clear this, and it's a better bet to just play it safe and say, just say no, or they just don't have time to do this. I'm on the phone with since the new administration, they started a commission for the declassification of classified documents. It was done under James Comer, and he put Anna Luna in charge. And I have called both of those two offices actually pretty much every week. I've talked to every intern they probably have. Sent the email with a request a million times to put the World War II and the Kamala. And now again, why did the CIA exactly take care of Himmler's mistress and her kids for their entire life? What did they tell them? I really would like to know that. There's just so many questions, and I'm putting out a press release this week, bitching about why I can't get anything done, why this stuff is secret. Just trying to go to the next step. Hail Odin. Did you get your T-shirt, Monty? Damn it! Get your Hail Odin T-shirt. I need to make T-shirts for Poland, France, Britain, Germany on the sleeve. I promised to make T-shirts for the Lost Battlefield T-shirt. So should that be the German flag on the shoulder or the Imperial German flag on the shoulder?
Wait a minute. Hold on. We got to pause that right there. I helped design half the shirts, and I don't even have one.
What the hell's wrong with you? Well, I'll bring one for you when I come see you.
Speaking of which, off on that slight tangent there, I know I redesigned the mosquito shirt and the Panzer the Donkey Faust, and gave them more detail and cleaned them up a little bit. I wonder, did you ever get those so we could switch those designs through?
I don't think I did, but we got a whole new shop. All the old shop died for some reason. Robert told me that the old shop died for some reason, so I went on the new 4-wall, and so not everything has been copied over yet.
I just realized when I stepped out, my phone went off, so my apologies if you heard my ringtone.
I don't know, Monty. I got to come shooting out in Vegas sometime soon. Either it's probably not going to be until the autumn when it gets a little colder. Well, she was both his mistress before that.
Keep talking. I gotta get
this. I don't know if she was his. Did they have an affair before she was hired? I actually don't know. Sorry, sounds. All right, take care, Paul. I will do. Unless you stop calling me Tino. We call Stranger Things. Which doesn't really matter if he hired her because he was a mistress or not. I really want to see the tunnels, the homeless tunnels under Vegas where all these people live in there. I heard a lot about those. Yeah, we'll do the Imperial German flag, then we'll get in trouble for it. But I'll give you, maybe I should do 2 options. Just a matter of changing the shoulders. Unity Mitford. That was the. What are you suggesting? She had a thing with Hitler? I'm not. When did she get pregnant? Well, when did she give birth? Was it after she saw him? That actually didn't really follow her that much. That's interesting. Well, yeah, interesting. When did she give birth? Was it 9 months after she saw the viewer? I mean, he did have the kid in France that we know of, and oh, well, that's not helpful. So, do we know when that was compared to when she was in Berlin? Anyway, I mean, here we are speculating like over people's affairs. Oh yeah, yes, Todd, I am. There's going to be more. Of course, the next evolution of the lives of Himmler, Goebbels, and Goering will be done, and more as well. Oh, hang on. What am I? Why is this chat is not? There's got to be a better way of doing this. You can't. Oh, okay. Well, so what you're saying is I should try to do a T-shirt with a turtleneck. Hey, Norway. I think there's a turtleneck on the menu. I will see if I can make that happen. Actually, if we can print on the turtleneck, that looks kind of neat. I had that in my own company. That I haven't heard, Monty. An Olympic swimmer and Hitler. Well, I know his secretary chick. She was an athlete. She was a gymnast, or was she a swimmer too? Well, that was Himmler. Anyway, never mind. Usually I can, but I'm at work right now. As you can hear, there's all these weird things flying around me. So I only have the one screen. It's very interesting about the Hess plan, about what that will. Again, you're looking at British files that are forever classified for some strange reason. I'm not sure, like this one will print. I don't know if that's on the menu. I have a certain amount of things I can choose from. I shall take it. There's a Hawaiian shirt. I will take a look. I shall take a look. I'm doing some T-shirts that are a little more simple designs, a little more fashionable, maybe. Since we all know that women, they love men in graphic T-shirts. Not. Apparently, that is not fashionable from what I hear from the women that talk about psychology and shirts. Thank you, Monty.
Like a golf shirt. Well, that golf shirts, what we would do with those, we can actually do print. We can actually do a sublimatory type of print on those, and or just do a like a polo with Lost Battlefields embroidered.
Yeah, it was like, but with the one we're on fourth wall, so we're sort of a little bit of a slave to what they offer there. Yes, Hitler had. Sean, you're really right. Wait, that's the wrong one.
What I say? What I miss?
10 kids in one. Okay, that. Damn, I hate this. There's got to be a better way of doing this. There we go. Yes, they were. Hitler it's interesting. You've seen me when I out in Germany and when we go through Kummersdorf and places like that with Thomas and the dog, Paula the bunker dog. Thank you, Julie. Damn it, thanks. Can I start? Okay. Thank you so much. I can't heart it because I'm not watching in YouTube. I'll have to go back and heart you in a minute. Thomas is, what was she? She was his. He was related to the woman that was Hitler's dietitian. That woman that came in and told him to eat all the healthy food and the all the vegan crap. And always remember, when you meet vegans, remind them that they're just like Hitler. It'll make them happy. And he was trying to find out what the diet was, and I was looking at some. I got some pages with some of the diet of what he was eating and what she was feeding him, and I got the book from Morella, what drugs he was giving him. No wonder he was sick. I mean, no wonder he had bad stomach, because everything we know now of what you need of iron and meat and amino acids and stomach and things they didn't quite have a grasp on. Certainly, the people around Hitler didn't have a grasp on it, because his stomach was way better if he had eaten meat 3 times a week. Got some iron in him, which I think he was very low on iron.
He had raging vegan farts. I mean,
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It was his stomach was because of pure flatulence, because that's all he ate was vegan stuff.
And he was turning weak and gray and had a bad stomach because he wasn't getting anything for his body to work with. They were literally starving him of food and nutrition.
Sorry to all my vegans out there, but I'm a carnivore. So
if people want to be vegans, all the best. It's fine. Just be aware that it takes a lot of work. You can't just say, I'm not eating meat because meat's a miracle, blah, blah, blah. It takes a lot of work to be a vegan and be healthy, because you have to mix and match all the different amino acids. Remember, here's the nutritional advice. You have to, for food to be absorbed by the body, it has to be compatible to the body, which means it have to have a protein efficiency ratio of 100%. Egg whites, for instance, are 95%, 94% PER, protein efficiency. Means if you eat an egg white, 94% of that is compatible with human tissue and it'll be absorbed. So if you eat egg whites with a little bit of meat and a little bit of greens, a little bit of that, then you probably have a full amino acid profile and your body will absorb the whole thing. However, if you eat vegan and you don't eat all these amino acids, now you have to bring all these different supplements, these different vegetables, these different things into it in order for your body to absorb vegan food and still get the nutrients. And most vegetarians, they don't do that because they don't do the research. No, I am absolutely not vegan. Are you nuts? But that's the problem a lot of vegans and vegetarians have, is they're not doing it right. So, which actually takes a lot of work. Anyway, lecture on food ended. Eggs are out. You did eat a lot of eggs, a lot of vegetables, a lot of porridge.
Well, when I was doing my weightlifting and stuff like that, it was 6 small meals a day. So ate like a like I was on a deserted island. But sorry, I had to put that down there. Yeah, it happened.
Well, no, oh God, you two going again.
Well, you know, going back to thinking about, you know, out of the food realm and everything else like that, and yeah, people tucking it back. Let's go back to what we're supposed to be doing.
Let's go back to Comrade Stalin and Comrade FDR.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit farther forward with it. I'm saying, you know, I mean, as a historian, it drives me nuts when people use Godwin's law. You know, anything that they don't like must be Hitler. That stuff kind of annoys me. But there are correlations with history, especially when it comes to Stalin and, let's say, modern times, like with Putin. They had the same mentality. The mentality is that they used all those oblasts, all the states, as a buffer state because of fear of the West. But the problem is they're creating that fear because the buffer states are not going to be friendly when you're forcing them to be friendly. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's what's going on in modern times. And I think he's taken his, you know, the approach out of Stalin's playbook. I really do. And we lost Tino. I'm by myself. We'll just talk until he gets back, because he left me alone. Well, the question is, am I still here? It shows I am. The time of Kiwi and Russ. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can't argue with that. It's been going on for a long time. Okay, that's strange. You know what? I'm going to, if you guys give me a second, see what happened. I'm waiting to see what happens. I don't think he knows he can rejoin the same live. I think he accidentally closed it out. No, I don't like the Impossible Burgers. That's just not my thing. He's gonna have to send me another link. You don't have to start a new one. Just rejoin using the link that you sent me. If you can hear me, yeah, that's what I do. Just use the link that you sent me, and you should be able to come back. Who awarded Stalin as hero of the Soviet Union medal? I'm gonna say himself. I know there's a lot. Lenin, I don't think Lenin did that. No, I don't believe that. We'll wait for the boss here. But like I said, I'll go back to what I was saying. The fortress Russia mentality seems to be holy.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah, what the? I looked over. He got mad. He left me. He left me alone. This is terrible. Is it something I said?
It's like that's why I should not be around buttons, because all of a sudden buttons get pushed and then horrible things happen and then I disappear. And now my picture looks completely different because I'm looking at you on YouTube. Why am I doing that? Here we are. Now I'm looking at you here. Well, I heard the point you were making, and I probably agree.
I only vaguely added more information to that because I was waiting for you to get back. Actually,
it's like once everyone see you with a top hat and start dancing and singing. I'm like, hey,
well, I honestly about it. I thought about just going and grabbing one of the Russian helmets from the museum and putting it on, just sitting here and waiting until you got back.
Oh, here's an interesting piece of information. Did you know that the U.S. Marine Corps between 1892 and 1903 had a pickle helmet?
Yeah, instead of the quatrefoil. Yeah,
they actually had a real pickle helmet with the USMC on it.
Yeah. Would you believe that there's actually one of those, a real one, in a museum, I believe in Kentucky?
I think so. That's the picture I found. Roger and I wandered into a fort where they had the biggest pickle helmet collection in the world. And we went to, so going through the fort, I don't think I could do that episode without actually breaking down what all the different pickles mean.
Would you like me to go get mine?
Do you have a pickle helmet?
Yes.
Oh, show me.
One moment.
Oh, that damn hamster. He needs to run a little faster sometimes. He just goes the backwoods and then these things happen. Technology. I have a fever here, damn it. Leave me alone. It's going to be a long week.
By the way, I'm not sure if it's the native in me or anything that gave me a much bigger head than the Germans back then, but these things are tiny, man.
Yeah, they are. Oh, you got the right. Oh, yeah.
This is the Fest Battalion. Yeah.
Very nice. Infantry.
And it is mostly complete, minus the obvious. The liner is just, over the years is just disintegrated. But all the markings are still there. The Fest Battalion, all that, and like you said, you can tell just by the by the spike where he was or what he was.
See, I ordered a replica one in metal because I actually want to ride it with it in my motorcycle because I want to see how fast I'm going to get pulled over.
I didn't do that. I've never done that before. That's not my thing.
Excuse me, sir. Is that DOT? It was good enough as a Kaiser. What's your problem?
But get this. I use the you know which one I'm talking about, the one with the gold.
Yeah.
That's the one I was riding around with for a little bit just to see if anybody would notice.
Out there, no one would probably care. Here, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
that's why I did the old motorcycle gangs back in the 70s. Some of them would ride with a pickle helmet. I remember.
Yep, with the pickle helmet or the I've actually got the late World War I helmet over there too, and of course, a couple different World War II ones. But the first generation Stahlhelm, which is on the wall behind me, and by the way, that man had a very, very bad day. He kind of took one to the head. It went clean through. It's messy. But trying to find another one of these again after I lost mine in that storm was almost impossible. I just happened to land on this one, and
I would imagine if I find any out there, in Europe in any swap meets or anything like that, they're probably going to be stupidly expensive because it would be real. But it's funny, I don't see a lot of them.
This one cost me. That's one of the things in the museum that was not donated or I managed to do some trading for, but it wasn't super high because of obviously I know the guy real well and I do a lot of trading with him, so he did kind of give me a break on it, but also because of its condition. I mean, it is it's still in great condition, but it's still considered relic condition. But he had one there that was an officer's, and it still had the remnants of what was left of the the cover that they put on it, the burlap.
Yeah,
it had just a little bit of it left. Now that one there, he's like, how many kids do you have, and how many of them do you want to sell? Because because the liner was intact. It was actually a wearable example, and it was brought back, and of course, for me, when it comes to stuff for the museum, the story is just as good as the item itself. This one had a story. It came back with one of the Marines from Belah Wood.
Really?
And it was found later on, and they were tearing down the house that he had lived in, and his family had found the helmet and didn't actually know what it was. So
that's a true story. I don't. What can we do to make people more interested in World War One? The Franco-Prussian War. Damn it! I mean,
help me maybe figure out how to finish that documentary I wrote and its follow-up.
Yeah, you got to give me a shot list of what you want when I'm out there, so I can swing some drones over them. I should have gotten my. I got like 4 star forts for this winter. By the way, so I got my drone unlocked, so now I can do things. Because there's actually episodes I couldn't put together because I didn't have any drone overview. Because I swear, Europe, you can't fly the geozone, can't fly. Like, why? I had a geozone. I couldn't fly my drone over a fort, and on the roof of the fort there was an amateur. There's a hobby. What are those called? Little miniature RV planes that they were
Yeah.
flying off the top of it. So you can fly little planes, but I couldn't find my drone over it.
So get your little plane and put a GoPro on it. That's what I would have done. I'm
Does
sneaky.
anybody reenact World War One? I mean, there's a few in Poland. There's a few Prussian reenactors. Oh, that reminds me. I need to get anyway. Yeah. Oh, for the Patreon have voted for the next episode. One more Atlantic Wall forts. So Atlantic Wall's coming up next weekend of something that you haven't seen. That's probably most people haven't seen because it was locked up until recently. And yeah, we crawled through some really big stuff. But after that, Patreon number 2 voted for Italian Alpine Fortress. And for that, I need that. I'm not there yet. Right. But anyway. Oh, yeah. Go to the... Am I always posting on the wrong thing in Discord?
Yes.
Do I still do that? But I go on the one that says Lost Battlefields.
If you haven't noticed, every time you post, I'm like, son of a... go in there
but if as you clearly know, I'm a technical genius, as we all know. I can't post on my own Patreon.
Jay-Z, exactly. That's one of the things that I do focus on. He's seen one of the documentaries that I'd put together where I'll say it out loud in front, right in front of everybody here. I don't do that. Okay. Me writing something is impossible. I speak from the heart and do it that way. I'm not good at writing documentaries, and I'm definitely, once I get an idea and start rolling with it, I have an issue with how I want it to play out. And that's where he's going to come in because I'm an idiot. So,
what you don't say you don't write. What you wrote last was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, I did, like I said, I did have some ideas on that. With a lot, even with a lot of the research and the stock footage and stuff like that you already have, and we can even just take like right now, you and I, talking to our people here, like a small cut of that showing that, that this is what we do. We confer with each other and stuff like that. I think that would work out. I mean, it doesn't have to be a full on production video. I just think it'd be good for Lost Battlefields if we turn that article in particular into what we do.
Yeah. Did I ever give you my stock footage folder? I should probably just upload that. I have like all the stock footage I bought over the years. Give you a copy of
that. No, we started to do some of that stuff. But I gotta clear out one of my external drives. You'd be surprised how much information I actually have stashed away, even with the stuff that I've lost. But a lot of stuff I lost is a lot of things that you and I have been talking about quite a bit, like, pertaining to Operation Paperclip and Comler and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thrilled to death when I found that one stuff, about Comler in one of my other drives, and I immediately sent it to you. I was like, look what I found. I was so excited. I'm a strange person.
Well, you see what I do, so yeah, I kind of me too. Now, did I say everything I wanted to say about FDR and Stalin? Well, it's not like I won't be here sometime again. Shuko is working. I saw that. Tom, yeah, you did. Yeah, I mean, is it an online or is it a paper? That'll be kind of interesting. And so, Brandon, have you ever noticed how George Yashukov looks exactly like Tom Homan?
Great. Now I'm not going to be able to unsee that. Thanks.
It does. Look at the picture with Tom Homan wearing reading glasses, and then look at the clip where Shukov is standing in his trench overlooking Silo Heights. They look this. I'm just saying.
If we're going to go that far with it, why don't we just use the photo of El Duce on the balcony? Because he looks like him then too.
He does.
Yes. Look at Homan when yeah, you know which one I'm talking about too. He doesn't have his gear on. He's just standing there with his arms crossed. You look at him and you look at the side profile of Homan, and you start seeing Mussolini.
Really, I believe it's funny because when you look at Mussolini, you only if you search for Mussolini, you only get photos where he looks like a lunatic. That's all you ever get to ever find, which is really interesting because when you look again, how do we remember history? By socialist teachers and media mostly. How do we remember Franco? Oh, he's a fascist. If you go to all those little lefties tour guides in Spain that keep telling everybody that Franco was a fascist, he was a dictator, this, that, and the other. Spain has been completely overtaken by communists. Apparently, we're one step away from killing priests over there again. But Franco, to me, was not a dictator. But again, you look him up now. What should just bring you back? The dictator, the fascist Franco. What did this do the same thing about Mussolini? And Mussolini was in power for a very long time. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, the whole invasion of Abyssinia and so on was a little half-assed, not a good idea. Try to compete with Hitler on things was a good idea. But what did Mussolini do? He chased out the communists. Same thing as Franco did, which to me is a good thing for a country. But what does Mussolini do that was so particularly horrible? I don't know, and I'm asking that question not really knowing because I never dove into his life enough. I'm just seeing that every time I look at Mussolini or look up something, I only get a horrible, negative, and distorted pictures and a description of him. And I'm getting the same of Franco. And Franco, I have looked into a little bit, and I don't see him as a bad person. No, so that makes me question what I hear about everybody else.
Franco had his moments of insanity. There's no, ifs, ands, or buts about that. But at the same time, if you look at how he was throughout his life, that's where you and I, come in. Is we have to look at the broader picture. We can't just look at the bullet points. And it was the same thing with Mussolini up into a point. Do I think he lost his mind very early on, even before the war technically started? Yeah, I do believe so. I think he lost his ever-loving mind, and he became exactly the opposite of what he said he was going to be fighting against. Yeah, I believe Franco not so much. I think he got fed up with the current climate at the time and started to fight back. Did he do some things that were kind of off color and probably shouldn't have been done? Absolutely. But then again, so did we. So,
I mean, okay, no, I did not know he was abusive to his wife, but that seemed to be a thing back then. I would like to, at some point in time, I will do a dive in on both of them because I kind of want to know more. Ex-submariner, I'm kind of with you on that a little bit there. But Franco, I'm very curious about. Also, my mom lived in Spain for many years, and she had lots of good things to say about him. Again, you only know what you know because of what you've been told. But
right,
a lot of the things I hear told about Franco, I know are not true. So now I kind of feel I have to look into it. But what it does do, it makes me look at all stories on history and makes me wonder. And when you see how high the media and Hollywood movies have praised Che Guevara, who was an abject murderer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why do Hollywood and the media always make complete murderer and killers look great, and anybody who fights the socialists are just a bunch of crazy fascists?
Right.
Well, there's something wrong. Consider the source again.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting ready to say. when it comes to Franco, always just like with anything else, we got to see that outside perspective. We got to see what the people said at the time. We got to see their letters. We got to see their the books that they may have written, or things that may possibly be hidden in archives throughout the world. And we've found a lot of that. And with Franco, and that's why I made that assessment. Did he do some terrible things? Absolutely. But I believe he was just fed up with that current climate and tried to fight through it.
I mean,
Mussolini,
the Civil War.
I think the delusions of grandeur got to him so strong and so fast that he literally believed that he was somehow some sort of messiah. And
I mean, Mussolini was always a duelist, a scrapper, somebody who wanted to get down and dirty. And then as he also had syphilis, as far as I know. Again, is it true? I don't know. But that does affect the mind towards the end. I don't know. Again, he looked fairly healthy throughout his life, so I don't know. Franco, I think the war came to him. He didn't have much of it, and he was the last one left. He didn't seek out to be the leader of Spain, but it came to him, and the other one or two were killed, and they all asked him if he would step up and lead the counter-revolution against the communists, and he did, and he won, and he took over the country, built everything up, the hospitals, the roads, stayed out of World War II, built up the gold reserves, rebuilt Spain and its trade, and then he stepped back and gave the country back to the people and the king, which is not something dictators usually do.
Well, that wasn't his plan. I think after he was rescued by the Germans and stuff like that, his plan was to take absolute power. But if we're going to talk about that too, we might as well throw was it Josip Tito into the game too? The leader of
Tito?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yugoslavia, Tito?
Yeah.
The partisan?
The communist partisan leader.
Yeah, who get a little help from the British and get a little help from the Russians. And when they time to negotiate, and Tito went away, and he kind of slipped his British OSS handlers and went to Moscow and met with Stalin. And they asked him at Yalta where he was. He was in Moscow hanging out with me. And then after the war, Tito is an interesting question because he didn't really become a Russian satellite state. They sort of did their own thing to some degree, but again, a lot of infighting, a lot of murdering their own.
But but heavily influenced by Stalin. It was. There's there's a lot of nuances in on that one, to be honest with you. But I just want to throw his name in there because that kind of did.
Yeah. I am going to, that one is a good question, but the USSR would not have collapsed. Even Hitler knew that there was no way to collapse and to take over the entire country. They had a plan to go up past Moscow and then sit down there in an uneasy truce, because that was Hitler's general plan. And I think everybody could sort of see, just looking at the map, that they're probably not going to collapse. But you could have given them, or the U.S. could have given them enough help to survive. But you don't have to give them so much that they start building war factories for the Cold War and rearming for the Cold War, and to be able to sit on all these individual countries. That is where they went awry. I mean, we gave them so much food that Stalin at one point sold it out the back door to other countries at one point. So there's a balance of things. Good morning. And I think that this was not even just about. Initially, it might have been seen as, we need to keep Stalin in the fight, but considering they started giving him aid before the fight even began, then I have a serious problem with it.
To clarify, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
I mean, the Neutrality Pact, FDR, he breached that a number of times. Lied to Congress a number of times. But the appeasement is one thing, but support, the fact that he started supporting them before the war on the East Front ever began, there must have been, it's funny because I have never seen anything mentioned on this, but there must have been a communique between Moscow and Washington that Stalin would eventually have attacked Germany. How the hell else could FDR justify sending him weapons while he was still allied with the Germans?
Right.
There must have been that communication somehow.
Raymond, to clarify what I said about Tito, I didn't say that he was Stalin's puppet. I said he did things like Stalin. I didn't say that he was Stalin's puppet, or he was a satellite state, or he was Stalin's best friend, or anything else like that. I said he.
He was very much his own man.
Yeah.
Tito was very much his own man. A little bit like Romania. No, not Romania. Albania. Towards the end.
Speaking of equipment, we were talking about drones earlier. Sooner or later, I'm going to get you to send that.
Yeah, I know. It's sitting on my storage because I wasn't planning on using it. Would the Austrian government let me? No. Oh dear Lord, no. If I had all the equipment if I had the equipment I really wanted to do things, I would do things in the dead of night, because asking for permission in some of these places I would never get. Just look at the tunnels in Poland. Okay, that's a different country, but they're not even allowed to scan those sideways scans, even the tunnel factories they have. I remember Christoph, he tried to scan sideways in one of the tunnels in one of the recent projects. He got a fine of 10,000 euros. And that again, that's the thing. Why is there a deliberate attempt to stop people looking? If you keep saying there's nothing there, and again, the whole cover up of Bergkirch tunnel, somebody wrote me the other day that they didn't think the whole system had been filled up, but just access sealed. And they said it was filled up. I have no problem with believing that, because the tunnels were not collapsing. This is impossible. And there's nothing above most of them. So once again, that's impossible. So why did they seal them off? And why won't they talk about it? And when I met with the Austrian government, and I said, they said, they're the Mauthausen report. So yeah, but the report doesn't at any point in time mention what happened or took place inside the tunnels. And they all looked at me and went, but we thought that was the end all be all. We had a report written. So yeah, you had a report written by people who also doesn't want to dig into things. And it just whitewashes and addresses only one side, but never what actually took place inside the damn tunnels. Does it not? Do you not all wonder? Well, we have all these huge tunnel factories in Germany, these enormous places that I crawl through some of. The only photos we have of inside of these tunnels that were all taken by Patton's armies are the pictures that the Germans themselves took in Doha Mittelbau of prisoners working. There's no footage of any of them. There's one of one bench here. There's one of a workbench there. There's one of the ME262 there. We took all of these places. We documented them extensively, and not a single photograph of what these. General Groves said these are the most sort of technically advanced factories in the world of the time, and we have no photos of them. Does that not bother the hell out of you? It bothers me, because there must be something else then. End of story. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I'm in agreement with that. But one of the things I wanted to get my hands on for you too, I think I've still got one. I'll have to look, but I have a camera that can, like a fiber optic. Yeah, like a fiber optic that can go through. You might have.
Yeah, I have one of those too, but there's no hole to stick him in through in many of these places. Bring
a drill.
Yeah, the problem is that needs to be a very, very large drill, because I don't know what direction I'm drilling, which is also not helping. We need ground penetrating radar on some of these places.
All right, that's it. This is what we're gonna do. We got enough listeners here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna bring a bunch of them with us, and we're gonna make them dig the hole, and I will crawl through it.
Well, we actually did go to a place that you haven't seen yet in near. When they say Doha Mittelbau, That's great. There's the big tunnel. You can't see less than 1% up because it's flooded. Like, all right, fine. But what else is around? There's other accesses, there's other tunnels, and there's another tunnel system just on the other side of the mountain with huge Rakamla built things. And we went through that. It was used after the war, so it was all intact. So it's just huge. You'll see that later. Again,
what about
where are the fucking photos of it? When it was, I mean, you take a place, you take pictures of everything, you know what's there, you have to hand it over to the Russians, you document everything, you film everything. The lamest thing I heard from some U.S. Army intelligence archivist said, well, you know, they couldn't take pictures inside the tunnels because the lights were out.
I know. I've seen the writings of that. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
That's what he said. Like, I'm sorry, I did not know World War II took place in the Stone Age. Yeah, I mean, then you do it by torchlight.
Yeah. So I got my little one here. This is the newer version. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right. There's a lot to tour on. You'll see this year. I'll show you soon.
What about here's an idea here. When you're talking about about radar, ground penetrating radar and stuff like that. What about seismic photography? Basically, all it is it's
like they did in the Great Pyramids.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar to ground penetrating radar, but what you do is basically this thing fires a shotgun shell into the ground and creates a seismic wave.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did when they find those spiral staircases or things under the Great Pyramids that everyone is now arguing is real or not, right?
Yeah, because I mean that'll fit in a backpack.
Will it?
Yeah, there's some of them. There's some of them that will. There's little units. You don't have to carry the one that's the size of a helmet.
Well, I mean, that kind of thing makes life easier. And it would be a lot easier if they just open the damn archives and show us what they found, if they could find it. Grumman, please tell me what they sent you. Also, a GPR drone would be nice. It's only at $3,000. They're bound to come down. Maybe I can. Well, I don't think they have them flying around Ukraine. It's not exactly their topic of study.
Okay, which one of you in the chat's hitting the mushrooms?
Mushrooms?
Yeah, somebody's definitely hallucinating about some things. But anyhow, let's move right along. It was an observation.
But yeah, I mean,
Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, they had Duracell battery. I know.
Well, they had a nuclear test reactor in the basement, which is now a library. So, it's a storage facility. Again, that's another one of the things that scares me. When the Russian team under Flerov showed up in Berlin to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, which is interesting because the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute was not bombed by anybody in the big building because they had a test reactor underground. That's the one that they moved out, another one out to Gotto outside Berlin. But they had this huge bunker, tons of electronics and things inside. You've seen some of the photos. I posted them. And when the Americans got there, they just tossed stuff out in the parking lot. They just emptied the building, gutted it for crap. And one of the Americans actually told one of the Russians when he showed up, "What's inside?" He said, "Oh, there's a bunch of stuff and there's a pool." They had an indoor pool. Indoor pool? It wasn't a pool. It was a pool of heavy water. So I'm thinking, that was where they had tested the pile. And then, it's a pool in the basement. Cool. And I'm thinking, how many idiotic, with all respect to GIs who know nothing about anything from some farm country, shows up and go, there's a pool, and destroys things that could be exceptionally important scientifically. The Russians started digging through what had just been thrown out and finding all these things. So I was scared to death of how much was destroyed by ignorance. And where the hell is Hitler's silverware? But there's just these places that should have been documented. And then there's the places that were documented where the documentation is gone. And then there's the places that weren't documented but just blown up. And those are terrifying because we don't know what went lost.
Exactly. Well, I remember I was bringing that up about even close to my ancestral home because a lot of the factories and stuff like that, everybody seems to think that they were centralized in one particular area. I disagree. They were all over Germany, and I believe that Würzburg is also involved in this, along with Kist and there was a couple other ones in that area that I was kind of wanting.
That was one of the meetings Kamala had. I put that document in the first episode of Last Nazi Secret. One of the documents of Kamala having a meeting with Himmler at Wewelsburg, where they were talking about decentralization of everything, including decentralization things for the Ananaba, which we were still questioning about. But yeah, they were decentralizing for lots of different reasons. But they also had to centralize research to places where it could actually be, there's enough infrastructure to use it. And then he said, well, they had test reactors that was run on a U-boat submarine. So how much infrastructure did you really need? We went through the place where the underground factory where they made hydrogen, liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Basically the plant they had at the Peenemünde, they built that in a mountain. And it's really interesting. You haven't seen it yet. It's really interesting to see. Huge pools. Here, pools of blue water. Huge pools. Enormous infrastructure. And you're just going we actually got lost there. At one point in time, we couldn't find our way out, and then we sort of backtracked. But this stuff they built into these places is amazing. And again, we don't see any photos of them. None of it's been documented, and that's just something wrong with this. Anyway, what are you laughing at?
Trying to finish a comment. The purr. Had to happen. Well, it's kind of a rite of passage. If you don't find a single Humvee in a fleet that doesn't have a wang drawn on it, then you're in the wrong place. Anyhow, no, that was something I always wondered though, especially with going back to what we were talking about with the ground penetrating radar and stuff. I've been kind of keeping tabs on that equipment to see what it would take to get one, especially one of the backpack size ones. But my question was, and I still haven't been able to answer it even myself, is how far and what materials it can actually go through. That's my question, because if it's only a couple of feet and it can't go through a brick or stuff like that, then it's absolutely useless.
Well, we have to find out, and then we have to test it in a place where we can verify. Because if we can't test it in a place where we can actually check the result, then we can't. Then we don't know. A clinical test must be done first. I believe the terms I'm looking for here.
Well, like somebody else said, we just need to find some people that aren't out of the country, because generally we don't want to be in their jails, overseas. Some people locally that are willing to risk it to get that, to use those, ask for permission later.
Send me a link to it. Yeah, and that's the weird thing. I think if, for the most part, in most of these places, if you're caught there by some authority, at the very worst thing, you're going to get a 500 euro fine for trespassing. As opposed to the French, if you trespass on some of the old Maginot Line forts, you could potentially get a 15,000 euro fine and a couple of days in the jail, potentially, because a lot of that is still officially belongs to the military, but that's a different story.
Right.
You can also, if anybody actually can figure that out, because in an underground tunnel in a Maginot Line fort at one point, I ran into an old French military police officer, and we got talking, and he said, for France, you can get a pass, like a historian pass. You pay for 20 euros a year, and then you're allowed to go through the abandoned Maginot Line forts. And I told him to send me an email to that. Just let me know it's some historical something. And of course, he never did, because everyone I ever tell to email me something specific on site never does. This must be my aftershave or something. But That's something that might make that easier. I'm just saying, just be careful when you crawl around through certain places. Know what the laws are. I mean, I can live with a 500 euro fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
But
ignorance of the law is no excuse. So we've heard that before.
yeah, and it's true because sometimes permission, really, seriously, it just doesn't happen in a lot of these places. And by the way, I didn't mean to be derogatory to any of our American veterans from the rural countrysides that I was talking about when I say some rural hick would come into a laboratory and not know what it was. But in the 1940s, if you grew up in Kentucky and all of a sudden you're a farmhand and you're in the military and you're standing in a nuclear laboratory in Berlin, you will have no idea what you're looking at. And that's I mean that there wasn't the education, the know-how amongst the common cadre of the soldiers to know what a lot of these things were. Because they knew technology, they weren't stupid, they were smart, but they wouldn't have known what was advanced and what was just a thing in that sense.
Yep.
Just wanted to clear that up because I actually think that generation was generally smarter with more common sense than most of what we have today, and at least they could fix things. Anyway, since I have a fever and we're both dying, are there? Oh, the one thing I want to say: if any of you have the technology and the inclination to do so, you're welcome to cut shorts out and post of my videos. I don't know how to do that, but it comes back to my channel anyway. But everybody's asking for shorts and short segments and I really don't have the time to do that. But I think it's something everybody can do. Go ahead and take an episode, just crop out a short thing, and then post that separately. It links back to the channel. I have no idea how it works, but you're more than welcome to. Actually, what I'm trying to say by saying that is, please do. It might help. Like I have no idea why YouTube revenue always tanks out over summer. It's nightmares. It's brutal when you post new episodes that really was worked on and you see your revenue number drop the day after. It's like, what the hell are you guys doing? It's
Yeah. Oh man, everything's starting to over here. There we go.
Oh man, could you add the title card of the site name of it? Yes. Yes. At least I would like to. I think I left all of the locations in there at least. But yes, I will do that very thing. I'm pretty sure there will be a long mega on the east wall, just because I'm sort of sensing that come up. I don't know what else. Maybe there's some Kamla nuclear. We'll see. We'll see what comes up. Winter will have a lot of interesting things. You got anything?
Oh, I always got something, but I can tell you're about to dip out, so I got to go take some migraine medication before I crawl under the desk.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right, everybody. Yeah, they were. They very much were. All right, Machine. I'll talk to you later. I'll send you that book. Send me those logos. I'll put them on, and I'll see if I can make a turtleneck or a Hawaiian shirt for us.
Yeah, I'll get them dug out and sent over.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Have you heard from Robert lately?
No. Nope.
Well, he had something procedure done. I checked in with him a couple of days ago, a week ago, I think.
I haven't.
Anyway,
main procedure. That's it.
All right, everybody out there, the outside world, be safe. Be well, be good, have fun. Don't get caught having fun.